Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2025 release Night of the Reaper. It's a Shudder original and it's coming to Shudder on Friday, September 19th, so this is a no spoiler review. Now, I have to say, this one is directed by Brandon Christensen, and I've reviewed quite a few films done by Brandon Christensen. Their first one that they did was Stillborn, which I actually don't think I saw or reviewed. And from what I'm seeing, that was kind of like the highest rated one on Letterboxd. So I probably need to go back at some point and watch that. But I did see and review Z, Superhost, and The Puppet Man, which I would recommend most Superhost. I really did like that. Plus Barbara Crampton's in it. That was my favorite of what Christensen has put out. Now, Christensen has watched my reviews. I know at least two of my reviews, I believe, of films that I've done. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Christensen ends up watching this review. So hello, if you're watching. I'm going to be honest, though. Oh, cat sighting. Written by Brandon Christensen as well as Ryan Christensen. And Ryan Christensen is only credited also on the script for The Puppet Man. Shudder original coming Friday 19th again. Quick synopsis of this one. I don't want to tell you too much because obviously I don't want to spoil much, but the beginning sequence kind of sets the tone of someone being killed. And it's like a slasher type film, but it's this kind of throwback 80s slasher film. It's steeped very much in the 80s. You know, the costuming looks right, all the houses that they use and the cars and everything like that, it looks right. So that's one of the things that I really do enjoy about this film is that type of feel. But it's just basically about a murder that occurs in the beginning of the film, and then it's kind of like a fast forward, so that's your backstory as to what happened in this town and the people affected by that. And then fast forwarding, it's happening again, basically. So it's this whole thing of how's this going to be dealt with, especially the people who were affected by it before. So that's kind of all I want to give you because, to be honest, there's not a ton to the story. So if I go further, I'm going to end up kind of spoiling some things. But yeah. It definitely does not look like it's high definition early on in the film, but I do think that actually could be the screener that I was given by Shudder. Unfortunately, that does tend to happen here and there, so hopefully when it's actually on the streaming service, it looks a lot better than it did with the screener version that I got. I mean, there literally have been times where screeners that I've gotten have been really screwed up. Like it's the wrong version of the film, or there's like a mess up in a certain portion where like a portion of the film is missing, like yeah, things like that. So it doesn't happen often, but for that reason, when I see things like this where I'm like, it doesn't look like it's in high definition, I don't necessarily think that that's how it was shot. It's just that makes me think I think the screener's kind of messed up, but it happens. The feel of it in the opening sequence is pretty fun, and it plants you firmly in the 80s like I was talking about. That's one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things is the feel of this film. Not just that it's like great 80s costuming and the look of the 80s and, you know, the music and the products and all that type of stuff, but it's also the fact that this takes place around Halloween. And, you know, you see all the Halloween decorations and everything, and it's just, especially right now, like we're getting to that time period, and I am very excited about that. Halloween obviously is my favorite holiday, and I already told my wife we're starting to celebrate in September. September 1st, which I'm recording this before September 1st, but September 1st, we're setting up all our Halloween stuff in the house, and we're watching horror movies for 2 months. I mean, I do year round, but she's going to have to join me. But anyway, I digress. Love the fact that this film is around Halloween, and I think just for that fact, there are some people who will want to watch this film because of that. Because there are a segment of people in the horror community who are just like, if it's set on or around Halloween, I want to watch it. I don't care what the quality of it is. For a low-budget film, the acting in this one is serviceable. It's not the best acting, it's not terrible acting, and it kind of, you know, it goes up and down. Like certain performances, you're like, that line delivery in this sequence, not the best, but then the next scene, it's kind of like, oh, you know, doing much better. So it's kind of up and down, and like I said, you know, it's a low-budget film, so you can't expect like amazing performances typically. So it's serviceable. It's fine. It gets the job done for the film. It does feel very cliche in the beginning as far as like 80s slasher goes. It feels like maybe it's possibly intentional to be kind of like a tongue-in-cheek throwback film. But then as it keeps going, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't really think that was the intention. It actually then starts to feel more like they're trying to kind of play it straight. So then in the beginning, it just ends up feeling kind of off. And you're just kind of like, now it's feeling just a little bit ridiculous, a little bit too cliche, a little bit too over the top, in my opinion. So maybe I felt like it could have been reined in a little bit more for that reason, or just lean more into it and just make it very apparent that this is supposed to be kind of a ridiculous 80s throwback slasher, which people love that stuff. A big plus for this movie is the fact that it's around Halloween. I already talked about that. There is a pretty good creepiness factor in this with the introduction of cameras, old 80s video cameras. I'm not going to tell you to what degree, but the incorporation of those into this film, I think, work very well for a different element to it that really kind of makes it feel pretty unsettling at times and is, like I said, has a great creepiness to it. So really like that choice. The dialogue did need some work in this film. And when you pair that up kind of with the just serviceable performances in this film for the most part, it makes it come off even worse. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, if you have not great dialogue, really good actors can kind of sell it and make it seem like it's better dialogue than it is. And in the other way, if you have good dialogue and you have terrible actors, then, the dialogue can end up not sounding as good as it is. But this is kind of like an in-between type thing where, like, the dialogue's like, this dialogue could use some work. The acting is serviceable. So it kind of just, like, brings things down a little bit, unfortunately. The score is a bit too much with this film. Now, I like the composition of the score. I think that's really well done, and it really hits the time period quite well, and I like it. Like, I would listen to the score, honestly. But it is overused in the film, and it does get cranked up way too much. If you've been watching my reviews, you know this is one of my big pet peeves, is that when a filmmaker will use a score to scream at the audience to treat them like they're stupid and say, hey, we need to grab you by the hand and tell you what you should be feeling in this moment by cranking music. It's not necessary. It's not needed. And really with scores, less is more a lot of the time. It gets annoying in this film, unfortunately, from time to time. But like I said, composition-wise, I really did like the score. So there is that. There's too much animal death in this. And it's really not at all needed. It adds nothing to the film, in my opinion. Specifically, there are 3 dogs that are killed in this movie. Now, I will say for people, if this is a triggering thing for you, they don't show it. It's more just like the aftermath of it. But it's just totally not needed. And like, I know there are a lot of people who really hate that stuff. There are literally people who comment on my videos when I bring this stuff up and are like, thank you for letting me know, because I just won't watch those films. So I just think from the standpoint of when you're making a film, just don't include that stuff, because you're going to open yourself up to more people wanting to watch it, because someone's always going to be reviewing it like this, and they will let people know, like, there's animal death in this, and people say no thank you. So I'm just saying. I mean, obviously do what you want, because it's your film, but there's an opportunity there to not alienate some people. The film does start to feel kind of drawn out and repetitive, unfortunately. Now, this is one of those films that I think I would really advocate for. Don't try and get an hour and a half runtime. The runtime of this one was an hour and 33 minutes with credits. And I just feel like shaving it down some would vastly improve the feel of it. The pacing could be really good with this film for the most part. If they had shaved down maybe 20-25 minutes on this one, it would have gotten a lot better pacing wise. The problem is when you're watching these films and you're feeling like you're seeing the same scene done kind of over and over again, that's when you start feeling like, why are we trying to hit a certain runtime? It's going to a streaming service. This is a Shudder original. It's going to a streaming service. Don't try and hit like an hour and a half. Unless that's something that Shudder is saying you have to do, then that's not on the filmmaker. that's on Shudder, and Shudder, wake up. That's a stupid idea. Although that could even just be AMC because that's their parent company. About an hour into it, it does step things up, and it becomes considerably more engaged at that point. The feeling repetitive and drawn out is prior to the 1 hour mark, and then once you hit that 1 hour mark, you're like, okay, now we're starting to move. Now you're introducing some more interesting things. It really does pick up. It gets a lot better. Now that said, when it gets to the ending, which is a pretty solid ending in my opinion, it goes on too long. Again, it gets into this kind of like drawn out thing with the ending sequence, and I think again, tighten that up a little bit more, and it could have been a really much better ending, but still a pretty solid ending. And I do have to also say there is a really awesome practical effects gag in this film that I did not see coming. It's towards the end of the film. It's great. I want to see more stuff like that. Brandon Christensen, awesome work on pulling that into the film. I totally caught off guard on that one, and I loved it. It was so fun. It was so cool. More of that stuff. I understand, very low budget. You probably didn't have the money to do more than that, but if there was more of that in the film, it would have been awesome. Yeah, ending's pretty solid. So out of 5 stars, half stars, and play, I have to go a 2.5 star rating on this one. Like, I'm very in the middle because there are a lot of kind of issues with the film. There's not a ton of story to it until you get to the very end of it. It's kind of drawn out, repetitive, acting serviceable. The dialogue really did need some work. The score issue I was talking about, but the ending is pretty good. And there are some really good ideas here. Love the whole feel of the film. It's shot pretty well. The score composition is quite good. That practical effects gag, all of those types of things. So, I mean, I got to go 2.5 stars, but I would love to hear other people's opinions. I know there will be people who really like this film. I know there will be people who are all over the spectrum on this one. So, if you have a differing opinion from me in particular, or even if you have the same and you just want to talk about it, go ahead and put a comment down below, and we can talk spoilers. That's totally fine. In the comments, we can do spoilers. Do me a quick favor, though. Hit subscribe to my channel. That really does help me out with gaining traction. Thumbs up on the video really helps a lot more with that, so please do that. Notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. And if you want to pitch in a little bit for what I'm doing here, basically as a hobby, there is a link for memberships down in the description, and it's 3 tiers. There are perks that you end up getting with the channel on those 3 tiers, and you can just kind of check that out. But regardless, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this, and until next time, keep it brutal.